Hi there, welcome back with me DK in House Villa, episode 20, unit 20, and now we're discussing about speaking, part 1. Let's start everyone. Well, let's start with warming up, and first we will discuss about some common topic that you will find in task 1 of the speaking Ielts. The first topic is about people and relationship, for example, about family or friend, and one typical question, which one is the most important to you? Is it your family or your friend? And how close are you with your family or your friend? Next topic will be about health. For example, about sports or physical exercises, some typical questions, how popular is football in your country, or what is the most popular sport in your country, and about physical exercises, how important is it to have physical exercise every morning, or how often do you have physical exercise in a week. Next is about studies and works. Of course, if you are a student, the examiner will ask about your study. For example, why did you choose your major you are studying right now? And then if you are an employee, then he or she will ask about your works, so about your job description, and then what you like and you dislike about your job. After that, the common topic is about nature and environment, for example, about climate changing, global warming, or even about the weather. What is your favorite weather and why? Next is about language and communication. For example, how many languages can you speak, and is it difficult to learn your language? While for communication, do you contact different people in different way or in the same way? Next, about science and technology, about space travel, or about smartphone or internet. One typical question is that is it important, or how important is it to have internet connection in your smartphone or in your home or in your car? Then you might also talk about hobbies and interests. For example, what are your hobbies, and then about your interests. Why do you like this particular hobby, and how often do you do it in a week or in a month? After that, youth and aging society. One typical question might be about senior citizen. So do you think senior citizen has more burden to the government or has more benefits to the society? And culture and tourism. For example, what is the impact of international tourism to local culture? And finally, about travel and also a vacation. Where did you go in the last travel, and how did you enjoy your travel? So those are some common topics that you might find in task 1 of the speaking IELTS test. Let's move to the first exercise in the next screen. Yes, in this first exercise, it's in the form of present questions. So if the examiner or the interviewer asks you mostly about present questions, so you should also answer mostly in the form of present tense. You've got a column over there. The first column is about hometown and family, and then the second one is about hobbies, and then the third column is about favorite food, and in the final column we'll talk about languages spoken. So, for example, I live in Semarang, and then I will talk about my family, about my parents, my father, my mother, and also about my younger brother. And as for hobbies, my hobbies are listening to music, and then traveling, tennis, and my favorite food are fried chicken, steamed tofu, and spicy food mostly. And the last one, languages spoken, I can speak Bahasa Indonesia, and then English, of course, and the last one, I can also speak a little bit Japanese. The common question, tell me about your hometown. Well, I live in Semarang. It's a city with a 2.5 million population located in the north part of Java Island. And the town is divided into two areas, the downtown and the upper town areas. The climate is very hot during dry season and so humid in the wet season. As for the next question about family, tell me about your family. And the sample answer, well, I live with my parents who are native of Semarang. My father works as an insurance agent and my mom works as a bank teller. I also have one younger brother who is still studying at a university. And questions on second column about hobbies. What are your interests? Well, I have some hobbies. First is listening to music. I like to listen to pop music. Then I also love to travel to new places. I like to learn about their culture and try out some local food. Finally, I like to play tennis during the weekends. And the third column is about favorite food. The common question is, what are your favorite food and why do you like it? Well, I love fried chicken, a traditional Javanese style of fried chicken. I also concerned about being healthier, so I recently like to consume steamed food, tofu. But what I like the most is, of course, spicy food, because typical Indonesian food is very, very spicy. And the last one, the typical question is, how many languages can you speak and is it difficult to learn new language? I can speak several languages, such as Bahasa Indonesia as my first language, of course, and I can also good at English and survival Japanese since I live in Tokyo for 3 months a couple of years ago. Well, I think learning new language while practicing and implementing it directly is not as difficult as it seems. In fact, it's very easy. So those are the sample question and some sample answers about hometown, family, hobbies, favorite food, and also languages spoken. In task 1, the task will last approximately about 5 minutes. Let's see the next exercise in the next screen. Yes, let's move to the next exercise, still in warming up. But in this particular exercise, we will learn or prepare about past questions. The examiner or interviewer might also sometimes ask about past question, and you should also answer in mostly past tense form. You've got another column over there about first house or apartment, and then a friend you remember from primary school, and then what kind of entertainment did you enjoy when you're still primary school, and then about your past holidays or travels. Let's have a small discussion for a minute. First house or apartment. Small house, for example, the keyword, and then grandparents' house and rich area of the town. And then a friend from primary school, for example, I will give 2 names. The first is Anato and the second one is Ayumi. And entertainment is animation. Doraemon is very famous in Indonesia. And then, for example, I also like cooking show. And past holidays or travel, I went to Bangkok and then Singapore. And the typical question for column number 1, describe about your first house when you were still a child. Well, the sample answer, I lived in a small house. It was my grandparents' house and it was located in a rich area of the town. My grandparents' house is just behind my primary school, so it was very close. It took only 5 minutes on foot from my grandparents' house to my school in the primary school. It has even though the house was very small, but in front of it there was like a huge garden, an open space, and there is a car garage with a nice fish pond and a very beautiful garden, because my uncle used to grow plants around the house. As for the second column, a friend from primary school, this typical question might be, tell me something about your best friends when you were at primary school. Well, I lived in Japan when I was in primary school, and then I had these two wonderful Japanese friends. Their names were Anato and Yumi. Anato lived just next door to my house, and Ayumi was just around the neighborhood. We used to play together in the river behind the house. There was like a medium-sized river, and we liked to play hide and seek near the river. And those people were very nice to me. Sometimes we also like to play video game together. And even though right now we still keep in touch together through social media. And in the third column about entertainment, the common question might be, what TV programs did you like to watch when you were a child? Well, there was this animation called Doraemon. It's about a cat, a robotic cat, which came from the future, and his intention is to help his master named Nobita. It is very popular cartoon. It has been very popular since 1990s, in fact, until now. And another show I like is cooking show, because I like to eat, so I like to see nice food being served on the cooking show. There was one famous cooking show anchor like Rudy Koirudin. It was very popular in Indonesia. And Ibu Siska Suitomo, she's very also popular because she's one of the lecturers from the tourism school and culinary school in Jakarta. As for the last column, is about past holidays or travel. The common question is, tell me about your past travel and how did you enjoy it? And the common answer, well, I've been to many countries, and the last two cities I visited were Bangkok in Thailand and Singapore. In Bangkok, we stayed in a nice hotel just next to the Chao Phraya River. It was in Sheraton Hotel Management. And after we visited Bangkok, the next day we went to Singapore. We also stayed in one prestigious place in Orchard Road, Singapore, in Grand Park Hotel for another 2 nights. I went to Bangkok and Singapore with my fellow friends. We were very happy at that time because it was our first visit to foreign countries. So, yes, those are some typical past question and also past tense answer. Yes, let's move to the first two in Ielts speaking task 1. Here you should be able to show your ability in expanding your answers. Your answers should cover what, who, when, why, how, and where in order to get a high score. For example, list 5 things you did on the weekends. First, check email, play football, got takeaway noodles, after that ate at friend's house, and finally hide DVD. So, if someone asks you, what did you do last weekend, and you can respond, well, I went to an internet cafe on Saturday to check my emails. It's near where I live and only costs $1.80 an hour. I had lots of messages from my friends abroad. Then I played football at my campus football court. We played until we were very hungry. At lunchtime, I got a takeaway noodles and we ate them at my friend's house. While eating the noodles, we watched a hide DVD. That's all. Make sure don't get nervous or you will lose everything in your mind, even your ability in speaking. So one more time, 1 question, you may elaborate into 5 different lists of answers. Let's move to the next exercise then. Still, in tip 1, expanding your answers. Test tip: if you give very short answers, you will lose marks. Aim to give 2 to 4 spoken sentences for each answer. That's a must. For example, what important thing did you do last year? Now, I will give you 1 minute to think over what important thing did you do last year. If you've done many or some important things, choose one and elaborate the answers. 1 minute start from now, please. "30 seconds left. Think carefully, please." Time's up. Now, let me give you a sample answer. One of the most important things I did was to graduate from the graduate program of Semarang State University as the best graduate with the GPA of 3.97. I made my parents proud of me. I achieved my master's degree in 2 years, and it was such a long, complicated process. My research was proven to be also useful for a long period of time after I graduated, so all of my effort is not useless then. I think that's all. Great! Well everyone, let's have a review and we'll talk about people and also relationship. Before we start, here are some exam information in Ielts speaking, part 1. Part 1 will be about introduction and interview, about 2 until 3 different familiar topics. In part 1 of the exam, the examiner will introduce him or herself and ask you to introduce yourself and confirm your identity by using your passport. The examiner will then ask you general questions on 3 familiar areas. The first topic will be maybe about studies, and then the second one about work, and finally about where you live. Part 1 tests your ability to communicate opinions and information on everyday topics and common experiences. In Part 1, you're going to hear the typical question in Part 1 of the exam. Listen and answer. Listen to the questions and then answer. I will give you some times after each question. Let's start.
Tell me something about your family.
Now you may answer.
What do you like doing most with your family?
Now you may answer.
Who are you close to in your family?
Now you may respond.
In what way is your family important to you?
Now you may respond. Well, now let's have a sample answers for each question. Let's listen, everyone.
Tell me something about your family.
Although I live abroad now, my mum's family is from Paris and my dad's family is from Toulouse, so I'm from a very French family. I would say I come from quite a small family, really. For example, I just have one older sister and 4 cousins, but it's true that my extended family is fairly big.
What do you like doing most with your family?
I like having nice long meals with good food and good wine, and a few jokes for dessert.
Who are you close to in your family?
In my family? Well, I'm close to my Uncle Jacques. He's a chef. He's hilarious, always telling jokes, and he's very enthusiastic about everything he does. We spent a lot of time together when I was growing up. In fact, he helped to bring me up.
In what way is your family important to you?
My family is everything to me. They are my best friends. They support me when things aren't going well, and when things are going well. I know they'll always be there for me, no matter what.
Great, those are the sample questions and also answers that you might find in IELTS Task 1 of the IELTS speaking tests. Well, everyone, that's all for this episode 20 on speaking part 1. We'll have another exercises on different part of the speaking. That's all. Goodbye.